Today I want to talk to you about the 13 plants that I use in my garden for lazy gardening. They reseed, they make my life easy, they fill in holes. I highly recommend you grow some of these. I'm Gardener Koo, Nachos over here, and let's start. First we have nasturtium. Nasturtium is a great plant, but it will eat your garden. It gets these, electric orange flowers, and they are really tasty on a salad, like they're peppery, they got a bite. It's a big vine and it'll grow out in all directions, so sizing isn't really helpful, but they are really easy to weed out. And they seem to like water, and I would give them full sun to part shade. So this little guy here isn't going to stay that size for very long. This is borage. They get to about 2 feet by 2 feet, so I'm going to have to transplant them. But they get these beautiful blue star-shaped flowers that are edible, and they taste really nice. It's almost like cucumber. I love to use them in cocktails. I love to use them on salads. They're just fabulous. Borage doesn't really care about soil. You can do poor soil, good soil. It does seem to like regular water and full sun for sure. So for my next two, I have Echium Blue Bedder here and Nicotiana Sanderae here. Now, these two are so great in the garden. The Echium stays pretty short. It gets to about a foot, and it is loved by the bumblebees. They just go crazy for it. It likes full sun, and you can give it pretty low water, actually. This one also can take, some light frost. The Nicotiana here is another great one. This one has many different colors, flowers all on the same stem, and they're also fragrant at night. These guys get pretty tall. They get up to about 4 feet tall. They do want a little more water. They want some regular water, and they also they do reseed pretty heavily. Like the Echium one's pretty polite, but this one goes for it. So you will have to weed it out. All right, the next one we have is this Datura. This one has these beautiful white trumpet flowers that they bloom during the day, and at night they're actually fragrant. They get these spiky little apples that will fall into the soil where they are growing, and that's how they reseed. So they don't actually move around the garden all that much. They get about 3 foot by 3 foot, I would say, and they're highly poisonous, so you don't have to worry about deer or gophers touching them. Next to them, I have the Sorrentine blue shrimp plant. This is probably my favorite reseeder. It gets all of these beautiful flowers that are kind of in between blue and purple, and it just travels a yard and they're very easy to weed out if you don't want them there. They get about 2 feet tall, and they do want regular water to look their best. If you don't give them enough water, they tend to get a little yellow and it looks a little off. They are an aggressive spreader though, so be careful if you're going to plant this, and they also make a really exquisite cut flower. So the next one is this electric calendula or pot marigold. I love this one so much. The color is just so vibrant. You can use these flower petals to treat a poultice, like I talked about in my disaster video. That treats small wounds and scratches. You can also put them on salads. They're edible, and they just make a salad really come to life. Now, I actually bought these from the nursery, but I have some plants right here that are volunteers from the last time I planted them here. They're very easy. Just give them regular water, full sun to part sun, and they usually get about 1 foot by 1 foot. Some of the varieties will get bigger, so careful. And they also come in yellow and kind of a yellow-white. Our next one is the California poppy. I'm not even going to try to say the botanical name. This is one of the few where I won't even dare. It's like 10 letters long, and there's so many consonants. But anyways, California poppy is a short-lived perennial. If you actually cut it back after it flowers the first time, you can usually get a second flush. You want to give these guys full sun and regular to no water at all. They are drought tolerant, but they definitely look a lot better if you give them some supplemental water. And you want to avoid getting water on their leaves, especially if you live in a damp spot like I do where it's very foggy all summer, because you'll get a powdery mildew, and you can just treat that, like I've said a million times in just this video, copper or sulfur. So for our entry in the giant category, we have Echium fastiosum, or the Pride of Madeira. This guy gets up to 10 feet tall, and this whole column will be covered in tiny but numerous blue or kind of purple flowers. The bees just go crazy for this plant. It'll just be all abuzz. I'll put up a picture so you can see what it actually looks like in bloom. Hello, Froggy, in my frog habitat. Anyways, these guys are super simple. They're kind of a weed in coastal California. You want to give them full sun, and you want to give them regular to low water. But honestly, you'll see them growing out in the wild without any water at all. So they're super simple, and I say go for it because it's nice to have a dramatic touch in the garden. All right, this next one has receded to the point where it's starting to annoy me a little bit in the garden, but I'm still there for it, and that is Euphorbia wolfeni. This shrub gets to about 4 by 4 feet, and it gets these really interesting green flowers. These are like nothing else out there. It also makes a really cool cut flower. You just have to be very careful. They bleed a white substance that's an irritant to the skin, but as long as you flame the tip, sealed it, basically, then they last for weeks in a vase. Before Beowulf and I gets about 4 feet by 4 foot. It really is so easy. It doesn't need water, and it can take most soil conditions. It's from Australia, and this is a rugged little one. Now to one of my favorites for vegetable gardens. I always love to add violas to my vegetable gardens. They're these cute little guys that get, 10 inch by 10 inch, and they have these really beautiful flowers that come in basically every color of the rainbow. And to boot, the flowers are all edible. They taste like peas, basically. So it's always really fun to add them to a salad. Violas like regular water, and they can take full sun to park shade. They are just such a happy little thing to show up in your garden. All of the plants I'm showing you here today, by the way, have not been planted by me. They're all reseeded on their own, making my garden really a shifting landscape, and it really helps me out because then I don't have to fill in all the holes myself. All right, this next one is this dainty nigella or love in the mist. The flowers come in white, different blue shades, and even a red. This thing is so cute in a salad. These edible flowers look absolutely out of this world. They also get seed pods when they mature that are just big, and they look so cool in a cut flower arrangement. And if you let them mature past that, you get their seeds, which is called black cumin, which is just a great spice to add to like rice dishes. They're very easy. You want to just grow them in full sun to part sun and give them regular water, and that's it. All right, for our last one, I have Alonzoa meridionalis, which is this orange guy, not the beautiful orange lily here. The Alonzo I actually bought originally at my first nursery job about 15 years ago, and it has followed me from house to house, 3 houses, ever since. It's just such a great little plant. They get to about foot tall by a foot wide, and about 2 feet tall, and this orange color, you might be sensing the theme from the types of flowers I like, just really shows up in a garden. They like part shade to full sun, and they do seem to like decent soil. But they are a great little addition to any little nook in your garden, and then you can just take these old seed heads and throw them where you want them to start up next. Well, I hope I've inspired you to be, a little lazier. You should get some plants that are going to help you out in the garden so you don't have to do all the heavy lifting and digging. I'm Gardener Koo. Go get your hands dirty.